It's that time of the year, everybody, where WWE decides to deem it necessary to, quote, cut the fat and release more of their talent. This is something that usually takes place right after WrestleMania season ends. They don't do it every single year, but this is an occurrence that is associated most with taking place after WrestleMania is over and done with every year. And we got that this past Thursday afternoon, 1 year, as a matter of fact, to the day that Black Wednesday occurred last year when WWE released over 30 of its talent, or some crazy amount close to that, of course. They first announced that Mickie James and Billie Kay were released from the WWE. This was followed by the news of further superstar releases, such as Peyton Royce, Kalisto, Tucker, Wesley Blake, Chelsea Green, Bo Dallas, Mojo Rawley, and the biggest name included in these cuts, Samoa Joe. John Laurinaitis was the one who called the talent directly to let them know that they're not needed anymore in the E, citing budget cuts as the sole reason why they had to do it. Keep this little fact in mind when I remind you all that WWE had their most profitable year last year in 2020. Yeah, that makes right. Budget cuts though, right? Yeah. You're not fooling anybody with that. And so since they were all released from the company, a 90-day no-compete clause is in effect for all these people, which we did talk about on a recent episode of the podcast on how the no-compete clause can be a good or bad thing for the talent, depending how you look at it. So all of these names will not be able to sign with other promotions until July 14, which just so happens to be my own birthday. So that's something I guess more than a few people are looking forward to. So we're all waiting for that particular day, I guess. So yeah, like with last year's releases, let's go over the individual names that were part of this year's cuts and figure out what the future lies for them. First off, Samoa Joe. This was the most baffling cut of the bunch, easily, as he had the most to offer as a performer. Had the makings of a world champion, and should have been at least a one, should have at least had a ring for himself up to this point. He's had quite a few world title feuds with the likes of Lesnar, AJ Styles, Kofi Kingston over the past few years, and he's delivered on all cylinders when he was in those storylines with his promo ability and his aggression and intensity that he brings to himself and the storylines. But they never quite pulled the trigger on him. They've since placed him on commentary duty for Raw since the pandemic hit last year, and he hasn't wrestled a match since February of that same year, as the one downside to Joe, that he is injury prone a lot, reared its ugly head once again. And if you felt you had to let him go because he's always on the shelf, so why not place him in a coach mentor position for the people getting into the wrestling business at the Performance Center and shape them to be a more complete package and refine their craft? Joe has a lot of wisdom to offer to the next few generations of talent.
Yeah. So I'm just going to sum it all up based on all the names you just said. If I'm Tony Khan, I'm thinking about it like this. I just hit 1 million for the first time this past Wednesday, right?
Yeah, it's all good, man. Ricardo with that background noise. You gotta love that.
Anyway,
go ahead.
If I'm Tony Khan, I just hit 1 million this past Wednesday. This is who I would pick up after the 90-day complete clause. Samoa Joe, Peyton Royce, possibly Mickie James. That's a stretch, because the reason why I said Mickie James for AEW, because there's no veteran leadership in AEW for the females. That's why I picked her, right? And I think that, and I feel like I'm missing one more, but clarify what I'm about to say. But what I'm saying is that, like, Samoa Joe needs a staple where he needs to set his sight into where he can retire, right? I still feel like he got a lot more wrestling years in him, and I still feel like he needs a change of scenery for him. So I think by signing in AEW would be the good things for the better. Now, for Peyton Royce, people are surprised. People might be surprised of me saying Peyton Royce, but let me tell you why I say Peyton Royce. Don't get me wrong. She's not a great wrestler. But she could talk. She could work herself on the mic. All right. She could work herself on the mic almost better than any other female in the game in WWE, and she could showcase herself very very well on the mic, so she could broadcast herself in rivalries, not from a wrestling standpoint, but from a promo standpoint, and that's what you need for the women's division, almost more than anything besides the wrestling. So that's what you need for Peyton Royce in order to put her in AEW. I already told you about Joe, I already told you about Peyton Royce, and I already told you about Mickey James. If I'm Tony Khan, those are the three names I will go after: Mickey James, Peyton Royce, Samoa Joe.
For me, Samoa Joe and Peyton Royce should definitely go to AEW. That's not even a debate or even a question. Samoa Joe is a household name that you could run around to, and for Peyton Royce, she could get to AEW very easily because her husband's working there right now. Excuse me. As for everybody else, like when it comes to talent being released, AEW is not always the main company to go right after, since this is rival company. There's other companies that they can go to, like Impact or Ring of Honor or New Japan, whatever. But in terms of the names, I do agree with Ricardo. Mickey James is honestly kind of a stretch. Like it's a stretch, because honestly, for Mickey James, her career has already been solidified already. So it's like
I want to say something about that. The reason why I say Mickey James is because of these reasons. One, AEW does not have one veteran in the back.
No, I understand that.
No,
I understand
Let me finish. To conduct one. Fuck. To conduct themselves in the back for the females. That's number one. Number two is that like I am getting pissed off.
That's okay, man. Mute yourself. I got this.
No,
so
I understand what he was saying. I understand that. But for Mickey, this is just my opinion. For Mickey James, if she wants to sign into another wrestling company, then by all means go for it. But it's like, for me, like, I don't know. It's like, I don't know if I want to see you in AEW, or like you could just stay. Let's say she announces her retirement or whatever. Because like, honestly, like what else that she could do and stuff like that. Like, do I want her to see wrestle? Do I want her to wrestle? Yes, but at the same time, it's like, what else can you do? You wrestled in Ring of Honor, you wrestled in TNA, you wrestled in WWE. It's like, what
just to get my thoughts in on Mickey for a minute. Mickey James getting cut. She wanted to return to the ring and wrestle. She's expressed a desire to come back to the ring. WWE decided, sure, but not with us apparently. So she's definitely better off without them. They never utilized her all that great in her run, so another promotion will, most likely. I'm going to say AEW picks her up after the 90 days because she can be that veteran in the women's division that makes the other talents look good, as Ricardo was saying. I definitely agree with that, with his point there, because examining the roster, the women's division in AEW for a bit, they don't have that one talent that they could use to put over other women that has achieved a significant run for themselves in their heyday that can make the others look good. And they could lose 100 times and they'd be better and they'd be fine off with doing so.
They don't have that Chris Jericho, that veteran that they did earlier in the year when they started with AEW.
Right? I mean, they did have Awesome Kong at one point, but I guess it didn't work out for them because she was so injury prone.
Awesome Kong was butt ugly trash because she can't even speak worth a damn. Mickey James is the most valuable veteran right now in the market that AEW needs to get their hands on, because the AEW women's division needs a leader that's been solidified already and is a Hall of Fame talent, and who I still think that still has a few years left in her in order to get stuff done and to conduct the women's division accordingly.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
The one person, if Mickey James does go to AEW, the one person she should feud first, honestly, would be Britt Baker, in my opinion.
Of course. But I would give
I-
her a few wins under her belt
I
before
don't.
she
I don't.
goes
I don't give
into
a.
that feud.
I don't give a damn who she starts out with. It does not matter. All the females need help, including Britt Baker. All of them. It doesn't matter who you want to start with. It doesn't matter who should she really start with. If all matters, she needs to teach them. That's all. That's the main reason, right? Turn Samoa Joe. He needs to get elevated significantly. Join Taz. Do whatever you got to do in terms of solidify yourself in AEW. And in terms of Peyton Royce, she needs to do the same thing. Go to the AEW women's division, conduct yourself as a fully established female in the game, because WWE treated her like trash because she could talk on the mic and she could wrestle, right, to some degree, right? Go to AEW, she will have her prime years in AEW that she would ever have in WWE.
Agreed there. Like there's no downsides to her, Vicky, going to AEW, getting picked up by them, because they can't possibly treat her any less than how WWE treated her, which was bullshit. She's much better than that, what they've been giving her, which was practically nothing. But looking at another name that could have potentially been something in the E, Chelsea Green was another stupid move on their part to let her go. They've clearly been trying to get something going with her on NXT for a while, and she was set to be called up to SmackDown, but she also suffered her fair share of injuries, and WWE, I guess, became impatient and decided to cut her loose this past week. Who knows what her true potential would have been in that company? She's far from done, though. She's very young. I easily see her getting picked up by either AEW or Impact again, because that's where people took notice of her with her character work there and her presence.
I see Chelsea Green going back to Impact for two reasons. One is her relationship with Matt Cardona, and the second thing is she has history with Deonna Purrazzo. Chelsea Green could be that same person that Deonna Purrazzo was last year. Deonna Purrazzo got released from WWE, went to Impact, won the title, and made a name for herself. That's what Chelsea Green could do once she goes to Impact. I see her going to Impact more than AEW, in my honest opinion. Hands down.
I don't give a rat's ass about Chelsea Green. Let's move on.
All right, but hold your horses, man. We still got one more name I want to touch on real quick, and that is and for only one reason, because of the insurmountable popularity that she has gotten for herself over the past few months with her shtick on SmackDown, and that's Billie Kay. Billie Kay is the one where, besides Samoa Joe, people seem to be really, really upset about her cut from the company. Like, really upset about. I don't mean to offend all the Billie Kay fans that may be listening, but I never really cared for her like that. Not even in what she's been doing lately. She's not good in the ring. She barely has any presence on screen whenever she's on screen. Her antics are not amusing to me at all. And yet, everyone acts like she could have been the next flag bearer of the women's division or something. I don't see it at all. And I saw a report where Kevin Dunn reveals that he doesn't get Billie Kay, which to me, as someone who doesn't get the hype behind her as well, I do have to agree on that. Now, I never like it when people lose their jobs at all, but I like the move if I know they've got better things in line for them for the future. Billie will most likely get picked up somewhere on account of all the popularity behind her. I'm not sure, though, where.
For Billie Kay, the fact that Kevin Dunn said the same thing, I'm like, this is the same person that said the same thing about Beckett, and look where she is now. But I digress. But in terms of Billie Kay, I do agree with you, Abba. I don't care about her. Neither. She doesn't bring any presence. She's not great in the mic. She's entertaining, but I can't say she's good on the ring or in the mic per se. If I have to
Can't believe we're having a conversation about Billie Kay. I swear to God. Let's move on. I am not having a conversation about Billie Kay. Let's move on. I'm sorry, Richard. I feel you, but we are validated. We don't give a damn about this female. Let's move on. Okay? I swear to you, Albert, if you bring up one more trash...
On Ricardo's cue, we'll move on. And with that, welcome to episode 62 of the Wrestling Hypothesis podcast, here for your Sunday, April 18th, 2021. off the back of WrestleMania weekend. We're a full weekend away. We're a full weekend off. The big significant weekend, of course. How's everyone doing today? I am the ABA. Joining me this week is the Professor Richard.
Hello, everyone.
And one half of the infamous bromance tag team, Ricardo.
You see, when we have the bromance in the episode, it's always going to be a good show. Let's go.
I thought you were honestly going to. I honestly thought he was going to introduce himself again. Like,
he knows I did a good. He knows I did a good job.
I'm low key irritated right now. Let's move on.
Yeah. But hey, it's always nice to see Ricardo or Kenny or anybody else get irritated a little bit, huh? It's amusing. anyways, man. Yeah, see Ricardo with the bird. Yeah, he loves me, man. Anyways, as you guys know, this podcast is available to listen to on various platforms out there, such as Spotify, iTunes, Anchor, Breaker, RadioPublic, Google Podcasts, and our very own YouTube channel, which we're planning to, since we're doing this episode on Zoom, you guys are going to be able to hear us through the YouTube channel and this particular episode as a nice treat for you guys, as well as everywhere else on the feed. Big shout out back to Solid Monster and his Sounds Off podcast. He gave us a big shout out on Sound Off 699 of his show that he released this past Sunday, the same day of night 2 of WrestleMania this year. I've always been a big fan of his work. And I even got to meet him on one of the meetups he hosted back at SummerSlam weekend, I believe in 2018, a few years back. Very cool, down-to-earth guy, and was very influential in making this very show, Wrestling Hypothesis, a thing in the first place. So I thank him big time for everything. Yeah. So follow us on our social media accounts just to continue on here. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, where we often report breaking news that comes out in wrestling, and we let you listeners know the updates on the status of the show throughout the course of the week. So give us a follow on this account. Go ahead and do so. If you're listening via iTunes, you can leave us a star rating on there, as well as some feedback on what you think of our show. And lastly, you can check out any of our older episodes in the archives using any of the platforms I mentioned earlier, as well as visiting our own website, anchor.fm/wrestling-hypothesis. Continuing on with the rest of the show here, guys. We may be talking about this later than everyone else in the community, but it had to be the case since we were unable to find time to do a proper review of the event for YouTube. But we're going to talk about WrestleMania right now, which took place last weekend over the course of Saturday and Sunday night. After sitting on it and getting some time to think about it, I really enjoyed both nights overall. There were more things I liked about Mania this year than I didn't. I did enjoy night 1 a little bit more than night 2, even though the highs were higher on the second night, but the lows were lower than 2, if we're being honest. It does kind of tie into the performance of how NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver did in their 2 nights a few days before Mania. Night 1 of that show was a lot better than night 2, in my opinion, because it had much better flow and structure to the card than night 2 did. And I could say the same here, despite the fact that night 1 had a 45-minute delay because of the weather alert and the rainstorm and potential lightning that threatened the show from even occurring at all, period. Add the fact that night 1 probably also had the worst match we saw of the 2 nights of Mania this year in that god-awful women's tag team gauntlet match. So did you guys have any thoughts about overall WrestleMania?
I'll go first. WrestleMania was good. I do prefer night 1 over night 2. Both nights had one bad match. Night 1 was obviously the women's gauntlet match and turmoil gauntlet match, whatever you want to call it. And the second one was obviously Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton. So, but overall, the matches were great. WrestleMania was great. Sasha and Bianca had a fantastic match. Triple threat match was on point. Those were pretty much the 2 main matches to watch from both nights, and both matches delivered.
WrestleMania weekend was a success. No question. WrestleMania weekend was a success. The triple threat match was the match of the night of all 3 nights, because I'm adding NXT. Of all 3 nights, I don't care what anybody says. WrestleMania was a success. WrestleMania was a success. Okay? Richard had had other things to say, but I'm not going to get into it. But WrestleMania entirely was a complete success. Now, I think this is a good segue. Abba, I know you're the moderator, but may I just put this into the show since we're going to talk about this?
Go right ahead, man. Do your thing.
We just saw a great triple threat match between Edge, Bryan, and Roman Reigns. Probably one of the best matches I've ever seen in WrestleMania. Now, gentlemen, where does this rank in the greatest triple threat matches of all time? WWE specifically, of course.
Okay.
Abba, you go first.
So for my thoughts on that particular question, it was great. It was fantastic, actually. That was the thing I enjoyed the most out of WrestleMania this weekend, out of WrestleMania this year. Out of the 2 nights of wrestling, we got Edge, Bryan, and Roman absolutely killed it. They had the complete packet, the total package that warranted it being a WrestleMania main event. Never mind WrestleMania match, worthy of being on the WrestleMania card. Main event, it was one of the better main events we've seen in WrestleMania history, no question about that. And to answer your question, Ricardo, is it up there with it is absolutely up there with the best triple threats we've ever seen in WWE history. I would say it's definitely probably top 10, and if I were to go further, if I were to really think about it, to sit and think about it, it would probably be closer to top 5, if not at top 5. I don't know what do we think about
Richard,
that.
Richard, what do you think, bro?
I would say I think this triple threat match is top 3 because it's top 3 because the reason why the build up, the animosity, the tension from all 3 men, like if you're saying Ricardo, you said best triple threat matches, I was gonna say triple threat matches out of WrestleMania. Now, no, this is just my opinion. Like, I think it's top 3, hands down.
You see how he tried to be slick, Ricardo? You see that?
I'm not being slick. It's just my personal opinion. This match is top 3.
Richard.
Dude, he was talking about. The question was.
No, I know what was
all time.
I know
all time.
I know. I'm saying like it's top 3.
What's number 1?
Number 1.
In your opinion, what's the best triple threat
what's
you've ever
number
seen
1
in WWE?
I have a feeling I know his answer, but I want him to say.
The best triple threat match that I have seen in WWE was, I would have to say 30. Bryan, Orton, and Batista.
Okay.
What? That match was great.
Wait.
I like that
Wait.
I like that pick.
Abba, I got this. Mute your mic and you stay there. Now
he's got this, ladies. Ricardo's got this, ladies and gentlemen. Let's enjoy the show while we're at it.
Now, the one you picked with Daniel Bryan, Batista, and Randy Orton, I'm not saying the match was trash. It was not trash. I would say that match specifically is top 5. I would say that. But it's not number 1.
So what do you think is number 1?
I think Roman Reigns, Edge, and Bryan is number 1. And
okay.
Let me explain. Because mute your mic, bro. Let me tell you something. Nobody had this much hype in this triple threat match more than any other fan in the world. There's that one triple threat match, even with Daniel Bryan, Batista, and Orton, had this much hype than this one this past Sunday. Right? Every man in that match, Reigns, Bryan, and Edge, had something to lose. We had that question last week. If someone had something to lose in that match, technically, everybody had something to lose. In terms of Bryan, in terms of Edge, and in terms of Roman Reigns. Basically, specifically, each one had to lose something based on their character development in that match. It was basically based on perseverance versus desperation. Who wanted it more? Who was the best? Who was number one in the WWE? That match specifically was specifically based on who is number one more than any other match that you could think of. You could think of Lesnar, Big Show, and Kurt Angle. You could think of Kurt Angle, Undertaker, and The Rock. You could think of Shawn Michaels, Benoit, and Triple H. You could think of Daniel Bryan, Batista, and Randy Orton. That's like top 5 based on what I just named, right? None of them, and I mean none of them, have the build compared to this one. None of them. Okay, especially Roman Reigns, because remember, he's developing a new character as the tribal chief, while it's with Edge as the Hall of Famer, who's to see if he still got it in the table, and to see as Daniel Bryan if he still has something left in the tank. Now, due to the fact that this match was main event worthy in WrestleMania, more hype than any other match I just mentioned in WrestleMania, no one can tell me that this was nobody, not even your mama Abba, can tell me that this was number one. I love your mama, trust me, she's dope. But like your mama's cool, bro. That's not an insult. That's a compliment. You'll be okay, Abba. You'll be okay, Abba. That is the greatest triple threat match ever.
Okay, so let's get this out of the way, man. Objectively, we can't answer that question. Subjectively, it's all based on our personal preference at the end of the day. What we want the most out of our wrestling match, out of our favorite wrestling matches, out of a wrestling match, right? If you feel that you got the most out of any triple threat match in Reigns, Edge, and Bryan this past weekend, then hey, more power to you. You figured it out. You realize, yes, this does the most for me as a triple threat that I've ever seen compared to every other triple threat you've ever seen in history.
I do
by
like
all
your
means, that's great.
I have a suggestion.
I do like your picks though. Richard had a good pick. Daniel Bryan, Batista, Orton. Wait, hold on, Richard. I got you. Hold on. That was a good pick for Richard. And for Abba, what was yours? You never told me yours, Abba. What was yours?
Well, so my personal favorite is probably Rock, Undertaker, and Angle at Vengeance 02.
That's
really?
And that's a very
that was a great
match.
That was a great match.
That's a great match.
But
I wouldn't even call it a sleeper. I think it gets the credit it always gets. It's always
because to be honest with you, not a lot of people remember that match.
Remember that match compared
to the 5 I mentioned.
Right, because it wasn't at a WrestleMania or at a bigger stage like that.
No,
not even.
Ricardo mentioned Lesnar, Angle, Big Show, and that was at Vengeance the following year. And that match was better than the one in 02. And like,
I disagree, but okay.
Okay, that's an argument for another
I have to get y'all riled up there. But that's just my opinion. I'm not thinking like, oh, it's definitely better. That's just what I think. But go ahead.
Argument
You're
for
fucking
another
lucky.
day.
You're lucky. Yeah. You are so lucky.
I'm lucky now.
No.
Wow.
No, you are looking, because honestly, I would have given you the business about that match, but that's another day. Anyway, in terms of, I was gonna say on Instagram, which we can do, we could do a poll, which triple threat match was better, Reigns, Edge, and Bryan, or Bryan, Orton, and Batista at 30. So I'm thinking about like, let's do that, because we haven't had a poll in a minute. So
yeah, that's something you listeners I'm sure will enjoy.
And plus, if you truly think about it, both builds were so even, so congested, like to the point in which I'm like, you can't decide like which one was great, because it was great in their own way. So I would say like, I will say one thing I will give the edge to, for no pun intended there, towards the Bryan Orton and Batista main event at 30 was the fact that fan interest, I feel, was the strongest it's been in a while, in a long time. I don't think we necessarily got that for 37. Like, we got not even, but we got a pretty good amount of fan interest in between all three of them, Edge, Roman, and Daniel. Everyone cared about these guys. But I feel like when it comes down to it, compared to Daniel Bryan by himself 7 years prior at leading into WrestleMania 30, and the hype and the buzz and the amount of interest that people had for that one character for Bryan in 2014,
I absolutely think it probably blows them the interest of all three members of this past weekend's triple threat out of the water.
I would not say out of the water because
okay, maybe not out of the water, but
yeah, you're
I
bugging.
feel like it's still the case.
Well, okay, you can make a case, but the character of Roman Reigns is too intriguing, and that's what trumps Daniel Bryan's run for WrestleMania 30. Not out the window, but it's like move aside because like the heel character is so profound and has done more for WWE than what Daniel Bryan did for WWE in 2014. You can't ignore that. That's where Roman Reigns' character development and for the triple threat match this past Sunday on 30 trumps it. That's why I think that's the greatest triple threat match I've seen. Let's move on.
Yeah, you can make a case for it, definitely. But I feel like both matches make good arguments on both sides as to why they are superior to the other. What was the better overall triple threat? Like character work, it definitely had like an even distribution. Edge, Roman, and Bryan with their triple threats at Mania this year definitely had more divided interest for all three characters compared to Orton, Batista, and Bryan, because people didn't give a shit about Batista. They wanted Daniel Bryan. So all the focus was on him. And Randy Orton, I guess, was fizzling out. The interest wasn't really on him like that. It was all on Daniel Bryan and him getting that opportunity, getting the big win to close out that year's Mania show. So I definitely feel that's the case. But yeah, man, just talk about the triple threat itself for a little bit. This triple threat had everything, I felt. Daniel Bryan, who was the babyface here and felt he had been screwed out of the Universal title on multiple occasions leading up to the show. Edge, who won the 2021 Royal Rumble match this year to earn the right to challenge Roman Reigns, but became less than fond of Bryan being inserted into the match as well. So he responded by bringing back the Rated R Superstar moniker we've known and loved him for many years in his run. And Roman Reigns, who had the odds stacked against him, and he was not one to back out from the fight as the tribal chief of WWE. It resulted in a fantastic main event to close out this year's WrestleMania show, and Reigns retained in the most dominant and decisive a win we've seen in a while, with him laying out Edge for good by hitting him with his own Concerto move, one of Edge's signature moves after Edge hit Bryan with the same move to lay him out. And Roman drags Edge on top of Bryan and pins him down both for the 1-2-3. Like, nothing else I will say for this regarding the match will do it justice. You guys have to check it out if you haven't done so already. I'm sure you guys did though. But yeah, not much more else to say about the amazing triple threat main event we got at WrestleMania this year. And yeah, it is definitely up there in terms of the best triple threats WWE has ever put on in their history. Now, switching on over to night one, I know we're backtracking a little bit, but just to touch on that a little bit, the main event of night one, we got Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair for the SmackDown Women's Championship. They headlined this night, and yeah, we were critical of the storyline and the buildup we got from it, as it could have been so much more than the shenanigans than we got with the shenanigans with coexisting and all that, and Reginald. But what mattered most with their performance on the grand stage, they aced with flying colors. They gave us a Mania main event we can look back on fondly over in the coming years. Both nights did. Banks and Belair had a fantastic match to close out night one. Very evenly competitive action here. Belair with a hair whip to Banks's ribs. We haven't seen her use her hair whip in matches at all recently. So it was a nice touch to have her utilize it in this match. And it left a big mark on Sasha's ribs at the end, which was a sight to see. In the end, Bianca won after hitting her KOD finish to win the Women's Championship, which Michael Cole so stupidly says Banks kicked out of when she won, which she didn't. The match ended, but whatever. And that was night one of WrestleMania. Like I said, really liked the flow of the show despite the 45-minute delay at the start. There was a lot of other good stuff. Highlights included Cesaro and Seth Rollins. They had an amazing match in their own right. It was Cesaro's big coming out party, you could say, even though he's had quite a few of those over the past 6 or 7 years in his run there. But yeah, Rollins made him look like $1 million. Cesaro made himself look that way as well. And
I want to say something.
Go ahead.
I want to say something about Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair, I am so glad they shut me up because hold on just quick. Okay, sorry. I am so glad they shut me up due to the fact that they pulled off a fantastic match. And what I truly, you know what was like my honest favorite based on between Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair, and it wasn't even the match. It was like as soon as the bell rang, they knew what was up. Like I saw, like you saw Bianca Belair's. She almost shed a tear because there's two black females main eventing WrestleMania for the first time ever, and stuff like that. It was very, very important. I was so proud of these two girls, especially as a black man, because they main evented WrestleMania both in their prime, stole the show. Arguably the match of the night between both night one and night two, between the women's SmackDown women's title match and obviously the Universal title match, but neither here nor there. It doesn't matter which one you pick. They both.
But think about this, man. Out. Both of them were part of the SmackDown brand, so SmackDown's really got a lot going for it.
Yeah, I'm not giving Richard's brand SmackDown some credit. Okay, I'm only talking about the black females. Stay on topic. Anyway. Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair, I am so glad they stole the show. And I want to say that I was wrong in this sense. I think it was 2 episodes ago, where I said Sasha Banks has done a shitty job of elevating females as the leader in their SmackDown female roster.
Yeah, you were smoking something.
Hold on. No. Honestly, check the receipts. You agreed. Okay. You agreed, Abba.
You also said that at the time they didn't deserve to main event Mania. You also said that.
Exactly. You agreed, Abba. Check yourself. Anyway, as I was saying, the way I'm saying I was wrong is because Sasha Banks made Bianca Belair look like $1 million at WrestleMania. And the creme de la creme of it all was like after Bianca Belair won. Obviously, the camera didn't pick up on Sasha Banks. But as soon as I saw the next day on social media, Sasha Banks' face pulled up a smile.
Yeah.
That
was touching.
Bianca, it was so touching. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was like, wow. I'm like, yo, she killed it. So like, I'm sitting here right now and acknowledging that I was wrong. And I'm glad to be wrong in this sense because Sasha Banks pulled out all the stops to make Bianca look like the best female in the game. Until my baby girl Charlotte came the next day and pulled out bomb-ass promo. That bomb-ass promo she had on Raw.
Listen, we're gonna get to that promo later. We're gonna get to that promo later.
I'm just letting y'all know. I give Bianca Belair her roses, and I gave Sasha Banks credit. But let me tell you something right now. But there's a rude awakening when you don't invite the GOAT to a WrestleMania. That's why she had, and I get that. But that's besides the point. When you did the GOAT, Charlotte Flair, when she said, "I am the opportunity," she spoke bars. Let me tell you something right now. The GOAT is coming for her 14th World.
13.
Whatever.
It might as well be 15. Line. It feels that way. She would definitely get 15 by the end of the year.
This is actually a good segue, if you don't mind, Abba.
Go ahead, man.
So, going back to what Ricardo said, Charlotte's promo. This is kind of like a fun one. Going back to Charlotte's promo saying how she missed WrestleMania, and we all know that, how she is the opportunity. I want to get your guys' opinion. Throughout history, what was the best heel promo that you have ever heard? Ricardo, you're first. Ricardo?
Yeah, I got you. The greatest heel promo I've ever heard. Well, before I make my pick, gentlemen, the GOAT is back. Charlotte Flair is back. with that no bullshit attitude.
Yep.
Right?
And as you're
My
talking,
girl-
Ricardo, I just got the notification. Hold on. I just got the notification. She's main eventing Raw this coming Monday. She's facing Asuka one-on-one, and she says she demands to have a women's championship match.
Rest
tell
in
you
peace to
something.
rest in peace to Rhea Ripley. Yeah.
Abba, can you repeat that again? Say it louder. Say it again. Say it again.
Rest in peace to Rhea Ripley. She's not holding
Amen.
that title for long.
Amen to that. Because let me tell you something right now. Before I make my pick of the greatest heel promo I've ever heard, let me tell you something right now. Charlotte Banks. I said Charlotte Banks. Like,
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Shut up. Edit that. Okay.
Sasha,
Charlotte-
what's next? Sasha Flair?
Charlotte.
Yeah.
Charlotte Flair. Well, actually, that has a good name, has a good ring to it. But like,
And so does Charlotte Banks.
honestly, it does that too.
It
But
does.
Anyway, Charlotte Flair has made her return. And let me tell you something right now. That promo she had, fire. Money.
You already said that.
Yeah, I can say it again. Okay? I can say it again. Because that was one of the greatest heel promos I've ever heard. But the greatest heel promo I've ever heard is Stone Cold Steve Austin, King of the Ring, 1997. That was the greatest heel promo I've ever heard.
Was that really a heel promo though?
No, Stone Cold was a heel.
I know he was
Stone Cold
a heel, but was that like a heel promo? If that makes sense.
Richard knows. Austin was a heel.
Austin, when he won King of the Ring, Austin was a heel.
He was
I'm
a
not
heel.
denying that. I'm just thinking about. I know he was a heel at the time, but I'm just thinking, was it like a heel promo?
Yeah,
You get what
let
I'm
me
saying?
explain why. Richard, let me explain. Let me help you out. That was a heel promo due to the fact that it was the evolution of his character in terms of the persona of Stone Cold. Understand? So like people ate it up because he was a heel at the time, facing Jake the Snake Roberts in King of the Ring, right? And he was a heel solidifying of getting noticed. It's similar, think about it like to a lesser degree. Like when Roman Reigns turned heel, we were all intrigued into his character. And even though we know he was a heel, we couldn't keep our eyes off Roman Reigns. Similar to when we couldn't keep our eyes off Stone Cold. So Stone Cold King of the Ring promo is the greatest heel promo I've ever heard.
My best heel promo would have to be, and not that many people really look back on this promo. It would have to be 2005, the promo that Shawn Michaels did in Montreal.
Oh. No, dude. I think a lot. Actually, no. I don't think that's underrated at all. People give it's credit,
right? Like
yeah, like it's up
That
there.
is not underrated.
That is
that
not
promo
underrated
right
at all.
there.
That promo. Let me explain. That promo right there that Shawn Michaels did in Montreal on Monday Night Raw was so infamous because it goes all the way back to the Montreal Screwjob back in '97. Shawn Michaels cut Montreal's ass so much to the point in which Bret Hart's music played in the background. Everyone thought he was gonna come through. JR and King were excited. Then the
It's like one of the. It's still like one of the loudest crowd reactions I think I ever heard.
still
When
to
Bret
this
Hart's
day.
music came, when Bret Hart's music played, and
Still to
Sean's
this day.
face,
And
jeez,
Sean's
like he
face,
like he
mind
saw
you.
a ghost from his past. Well,
Exactly.
he was going
Mind
to.
you, this was during the build between him and Hulk Hogan towards SummerSlam of that year. And the fact that Shawn Michaels pulled that stunt right there goes to show at the time when he was only a heel for a couple of weeks, but that promo right there was so synonymous towards the Montreal Screwjob, towards the beat that they had, goes to show you what kind of heel, even today's heels will go to do whatever it takes to cut a fantastic promo to get the fans interested. And that's what Shawn Michaels did back at 2005.
Mhm. Okay. You know what, Rich? You got me there, man. I'm tongue-tied. I really have no other pick, but obviously the Shawn Michaels in Montreal in 2005. that was still to this day one of my all-time favorite promos. Probably my favorite promo segment that Shawn Michaels has ever been in, and he is my number one all-time favorite in wrestling. So that holds a lot of weight and significance to myself. That particular segment on that particular episode of Monday Night Raw, leading into his
that is the greatest Shawn Michaels promo he's ever done in his whole career. I don't care what anybody says. Give me if anyone who's a Shawn Michaels fan, give me one promo that was better than that,
or at least comes close to it.
Or exactly.
There's
Exactly.
not one promo that Shawn Michaels has ever done in his entire career that comes close to that one he made in 2005. That was like literally the talking point at the time during the summer of 2005. Like, it was crazy in a good way. And like, he pulled it off with so much presence and experience and everything like that. Not even, I don't know even if one of today promos that we hear today could rival with that.
They can't. I'm sorry. It's gonna have to take. They're gonna have to move. They're gonna have to, the stars would have to align. They would have to, the planets would have to move out of orbit for something like that to happen again, and for that kind of heat to take place in a promo. I'm sorry. There's nothing's coming close. They could try, and it's gonna be fun to watch, but in the meantime, I don't think anything's coming close to it. So yeah, that's my pick for my personal favorite heel promo in wrestling history. Shifting back to WrestleMania, and I know it's a little bit messy with how we formatted the show here, but just bear with me here. And I'm stealing my moderating duties, my moderating privileges back to myself. Sorry, Rich and Ricardo, but you guys understand. Back to WrestleMania though, WWE is planning to make WrestleMania 38 in Arlington, Texas next year back to a one-night event, coming off 2 back-to-back years of them having Mania take place over the course of 2 nights on the weekends. Obviously, that was due to the pandemic complicating things for them, and it turned out pretty well for WWE, as a lot of us did praise giving us room to breathe by dividing the WrestleMania shows, which have been getting longer and longer by the years, into 2 shows that are more digestible to us and your average viewer of the show. Instead of sitting through 6 to 7 hours of content in one night, where it feels like a lot of what we see blends in together and not a whole lot stands out to us in a memorable way, they gave us 3 to 4 hour sittings in 2 nights, where the talents get more time to shine and to show off what they're capable of. It is for those reasons, in and of itself, that I am a big advocate of having Mania continue on with being a 2-night event moving forward, rather than going back to one night and it becoming an annual slog of an event, which has been the case since 32, I believe.
I also agree with you wholeheartedly. WrestleMania should stay as a 2-night event, especially the fact that it's so, personally speaking, coming from experience, when I went to 35, it was exhausting. We got there, like, the event started at 5. I didn't leave until 1 in the morning. Like, it was incredibly exhausting watching 13 to 14 matches in a row. And like, it's exhausting. So the fact that WrestleMania this year did 2 nights again, it was easier to watch. It was easier to digest. But now you're going back to having one night in Dallas for next year's WrestleMania. I don't agree with going back to being one show. I understand why they want to do it, but from a fan's perspective, it's not right. It should be back to 2 nights, so it will be easier for the fans to digest everything that's going on once they get there.
I agree with everything that Richard said. I got very little to say. I agree with everything he said.
Yeah, it's pretty much a straightforward topic here, man. I didn't think any one of us here would have disagreed with the notion that it should be 2 nights moving forward, WrestleMania. Because honestly, looking at Mania's 32 to 35, all 4 of those Mania in those time periods, since they started the trend of having, let's have the show go till midnight in one sitting, in one night. It's been very hit or miss with those 4 WrestleMania shows. We can't say their overall great or amazing shows, and that was really because of the fact that everything was so drawn out and just dragged on, and nothing really stood out as a result. So 36 and 37, despite 36 having an empty arena in the Performance Center, they had to improvise there. It was still it was probably a more enjoyable show with it because of it being 2 nights than it was the previous 4 years of Mania. And 37 was no exception. It had the fans, it had 2 nights of wrestling. You had a lot of good stuff as a result. A lot of things stood out in positive ways more often than negative ways. So I think they should absolutely continue this trend. And we're going to end it there for this week. Hope you all enjoyed episode 62 of Wrestling Hypothesis. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. I have to mention this again for any updates on the show, as well as on news reports on wrestling that you can find out directly through us. Thank you to Richard and Ricardo for helping me out on the show this week, guys. We will be back for episode 63 next weekend. On top of everything else, we'll see if spring cleaning is indeed over and done with that we got the past 2 days of these cuts and releases from the E, or we're going to see more names unfold and cut from the company.
You will. Wait till
most likely.
Week.
Most
NXT
likely, yeah.
is next.
They're saying NXT is next. Yeah, that's what the reports are going on right now. Yeah. So hopefully no significant names are cut or a whole lot more. So we'll see. Until then, though, have it easy, guys. Take care.
Take care.